If you're playing a gacha game, then you know that getting duplicate characters can be a really good thing. There stands a notion that a character could be upgraded to a certain extent when you pull them again. Each character does this slightly differently, but most games adopt a node strategy, where each dupe of a character is an upgrade to their kit. These perks also vary from character to character. Unless, of course, you're playing the GOAT Olympus Company, which doesn't give a crap about duplicates at all. Bless Project Moon. Many of these upgrades may completely change how a character's mechanic works and how easily it is to maximize their damage. Some of these do simple things like increase damage by 20%, and some of these upgrades are completely
useless,
such as Xiao's C4. Each character is treated separately, so they may not have the same types of upgrades, and they can feel like certain characters get special treatment. With that being said, how does Kuro Games handle sequences in Wuthering Waves? I'm Void Enigma, and I'll be going over why sequences in Wuthering Waves are overrated, especially when compared to other gacha games. An upgrade is an upgrade, and that is true, except when it's associated with a high price tag. The sequences of Wuthering Waves are not cheap or easy to get. However, you can obtain sequences passively by using the store feature in-game to trade your coral for sequences if you have enough. All you gotta do is wish, and after a month or two, you'll be able to actually afford a dupe for a character, which is amazing. If you're stupid, like me, and let your greed for pulls overwhelm you, then you may have spent some coral on tides already, which is objectively a bad choice. But you can get dupes for limited characters quite easily this way if you just bide your time. Now, let's get back to the topic at hand. How are the sequences in Wuthering Waves? Let's first examine the standard characters, as it's very important for standard characters to have good upgrades with the dupes that you get in the game, especially considering that if you lose a 50-50, you will be getting one of these characters. It feels so much worse that when you lose a 50-50, you also get a sequence that's essentially useless. Most of the sequences for the standard banner characters of WoWa are actually pretty good, however. They offer either small quality of life upgrades or more damage. The major point of each of these characters are their S4, which increases the overall team's damage of their specific element with an easy to achieve condition, except for if you're Genshin, who just increases her own personal damage even more. So far, I don't see any useless sequences, besides maybe Verina's S1. Considering Verina heals so much already, her S1 is just a very small upgrade that isn't worth it, as you'll just heal more. Either way, from her S2 onward, Verina is pretty good. It would also be pretty great if you left a like on this video. Considering you've got this far, you must be enjoying it, right? Leaving a like is the easiest way to support this channel, so go ahead and hit that like button. Personally, when I look at character sequence upgrades, I love the nodes that actually change the character's gameplay. For instance, this is done well, sometimes, in Genshin Impact, such as with C6 Xiao. Curse the restriction, however, but this has been some of the funnest gameplay that I have actually experienced in Genshin Impact. Sadly, every upgrade to get there is kind of
worthless.
Unfortunately, all of the other constellation upgrades for the characters in Genshin Impact normally just increase damage, and some of them literally don't do anything useful for the character. But there are some outliers, such as Yelan, Furina, and Neuvillette, whom C6 will actually completely change their gameplay. It would be great that with sequences, you'll be able to alter the gameplay in some way to make things more fun. I would probably never go to max out a character if their gameplay doesn't change in some way when actually getting their final constellation or sequence. Just adding more damage, in my opinion, is boring and redundant. However, adding a new unique mechanic or enhancing the overall gameplay for the character is the best way to sell a sequence, in my opinion. Calcaro in Genshin is an example of this, as Calcaro gets shadow clones at S6, and Genshin is able to immediately max her shield, and she gets an enhanced resonance skill, both of which release aerial shockwaves. Really cool stuff. Now, these are the standard characters, but it's refreshing to know that their viability will increase with each sequence upgrade. But what about the limited characters? Do they offer unique gameplay changes, or is it more or less the same, only offering damage increases? We will go over that in just a bit, but let's first look at the current roster of 4 stars. Man, these sequences are overall fantastic for the 4 stars in this game. Alto and Tauchi leave a lot to be desired, but their increases are also pretty damn significant. I love how Mortife's S5 makes him fire off these flame missiles when he uses his resonant skill, and the upgrades for each character either increases their personal damage or make them a better team player. This is a great thing because that means that you won't have any dud 4 stars that do nothing, and except have stellar upgrades to their overall performance in the team. I am slightly disappointed that the emphasis on Concerto energy isn't made for the characters like Yanwu and Tao Chi, or any of the characters for that matter. The way that these characters are designed, especially with Tao Chi, is that they have trouble getting their outro buff up quickly, and if that were to actually change, then that would immediately elevate them to the meta-defining table, of which Mortife and Sanhua sit at. I feel like this is a missed opportunity, especially for Tao Chi, since she is one of the characters who struggles with this the most, and her outro skill is pretty damn powerful. Now then, let's talk about the limited 5-star characters and my disappointment with the way their sequences are done, but why it isn't necessarily a bad thing. Let's examine Jian first, and at a glance, his sequences seem underwhelming, but his most notable upgrade is his S3, which gives him some stacks of crit rate and crit damage, and his other sequences being very notable damage increases. All of his sequences are just more damage. Yinlin is more or less the same. Quality of life increases and damage increases, except for her S6, which offers a unique attack, Furious Thunder, and that will actually do a ton of damage. At least we get a cool visual feature that will actually make her more fun to use. Jinshi is also super boring, just increases to damage. Significant increases to damage, mind you, but it's just damage increases. Nothing really notable as far as gameplay changes. And then we have Chun-Li, who is more or less the same as the others, just damage increases. Her S2 is a permanent 25% crit rate buff, but that honestly just equates to more damage. This goes to show that sequences and Wuthering waves will generally do one thing: more damage. This isn't necessarily a bad thing because that means that characters will be released in a complete form, and Kurogen won't implement the sound strategy that most gacha games pull: sell you a problem that they created. I was slightly worried about this for Chun-Li because of her S1, which states that she'll get interruption resistance during her Flame Sacrifice and her Resonant skill. And personally, I have never really been interrupted during her Flame Sacrifice or during her Resonant skill. The only thing that I've actually managed to do is maybe dodge out of her Flame Sacrifice to avoid dying, but interruption resistance still wouldn't stop me from dying, so S1 is actually very underwhelming for Chun-Li, but it is a 10% damage increase to those two skills. I've gone over all of this to make one point: sequences in this game are overrated. Getting more damage is obviously a good thing, but you gain access to a full character's kit as soon as you get them, which is a very good thing. I want to reiterate that characters being complete at S0 is a huge deal. Most of the baits for upgrades 1 and 2 are just more damage, and if a character functions more or less the same, then these baits are really not that significant. For those people who really love that specific character, that's great, as they can power up their beloved new character. But for those who play the character and get frustrated with one fault that the character has, they don't have to be pressured into buying a further upgrade for a character to fix an issue that shouldn't have been there to begin with. Other games create problems in the character's base kit and then sell you a solution through dupes. The most notable examples are nodes that increase interruption resistance or decrease energy requirements significantly. All these do is just make the gameplay experience frustrating, and they're extremely predatory. Having innate interruption resistance with a certain character can make a substantial difference, especially when they are reliant on not getting hit and completing their combos. And then, making a character who depends on their ult have to actually build tons of energy recharge to use that ult, which decreases their overall damage. Yeah, that just is not the way that you should design a character. All it does is just slow down the gameplay and further increases frustration, which will entice players to pull for the characters. I get it, but it's just a scummy move. While Chun-Li has this in her S1, it actually barely makes a difference in practice. However, for a character like Ling Yang, who depends on not getting hit and actually hitting people, the interruption resistance is a godsend sequence. Good thing he's a standard character. There are no other examples in this game yet, so this is a good sign for what's to come in this game. It's also very good to see that each sequence is actually an upgrade. Genshin is notorious for having 2 to 3 constellations that do absolutely nothing for the character. In the future, I'd love to see sequences that change the way that a character operates, such as with Kalkaro and Genshin. but the way things are progressing now isn't bad either. Let me know what you all think about the sequence system in Wuthering Waves. Do you feel that they should be improved, or are they suitable as they are now? Personally, I just want gameplay changes to be the highlight of the sequence upgrades, but let me know if you agree or disagree. Make sure to leave a like if you found this video entertaining, and subscribe for more Wuthering Waves content. Until next time, Enigma out.